Well, Merry Christmas from my family to yours. Thank you. Next Sunday, we want and hope that you take some time with your family festivities to spend some of your Christmas with us here at First Christian. And what we've done is we've given you 3 ways to do that. So next Sunday is going to look a little different because it's Christmas Eve, but we'll have 3 identical services. They will all have a Christmas Eve feel. And you can choose from 11 a.m. or 3 p.m. or 5 p.m. They're all going to be the same services. But we hope that you and your family, or maybe you would invite someone to come along with you. We'd love to spend Christmas with you together here as a church. I'm looking forward to that. And we'll be finishing off the series that we're in, which we've called Without Christmas. Here's what we're doing. We have asked at the beginning of the series, try to imagine, if you will, a world without Christmas. Like, just try. You can try so hard, and you can't do it. Because all we've ever known is Christmas. That's all we've ever known. Every year, December rolls around, and Christmas happens. And it's a part of our world. However, even at the same time, we still are in the real world. Christmas talks about hope and joy and peace and a different kind of world, simultaneously, coming into the real world, the one that we wish we were without, and that's why we have Christmas. Christmas essentially is this idea. It's not just a fairy tale. It's not just something we tell at this time of year. It's the idea of a literal breaking in by God into our world, into the world that we wish was different. Now, why does God break into this world? Well, our series text has been Isaiah chapter 9, 6 through 7. Let me read it. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. Sounds like something we need in this world. He will reign on David's throne over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. What Isaiah is saying is he's saying the world that you know, it needs an intrusion. It needs something different. It needs something not of this world to enter into this world. The only thing that's going to change the real world is something that's not a part of the real world. The only thing that's going to bring everlasting hope and joy and peace is something beyond this world that steps into this world. And we've called that person a wonderful counselor. The son, the baby, is a wonderful counselor. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. We talked about how that means that Jesus came to show us a permanent way out of present problems. We talked about how the problem is far worse than you can imagine. The problem with the world is that bad. Not only that, since you're in the world, you're part of the problem, and you are worse than you could ever imagine. That's the occasion of Christmas. Because things were that bad, but he loved us that much. And then we learned that Jesus is a mighty God, a la David and Goliath. He's a champion. He comes to the battlefield from heaven to defeat the giant of sin, the giant of death, the giant that we couldn't beat. He came to beat. And what are we going to do with the third title for Jesus today? Everlasting Father. And I'll start with a question. What good is a way out or a champion, as we've talked about, if that solution doesn't take? So if all that, energy and all of that success and slaying the giant and all of that, what good is that if it doesn't actually change anything? What good is that if we don't respond? Now, last weekend, we had a really weird thing happen. We had a Saturday with nothing on the calendar. Isn't that amazing when that happened? So it was so weird and so random in the middle of Christmas season that as the day goes on, my son Ethan is Dad. Yeah, bud. This is the longest day ever. Because he's so used to like going here and going there and doing this and being around them. And he wasn't mad about it. He was like rejoicing. He was like, this is the longest day ever, in a good sense. We've hung out so much, and our family watched a Christmas movie. We played some games. We ate some good food. No one did any chores. I mean, everybody was like, oh, we wish this day would last, And I felt that way a few months back. I had the opportunity to check off a bucket list item. I went to Lambeau Field in Green Bay, my favorite team since youth, and I took in their Hall of Fame. I walked on the field. I saw a game. They came back and won, and it was such an epic experience for me and my family. It was so amazing, and I remember in the moment of them coming back and winning at the game and everything going crazy, just thinking to myself, I hope this never ends, There's so much jubilation and joy and celebration, and it was a great weekend. I hope this never, ever ends. Please don't be over. What is the thing that Ethan last Saturday and I, a few months back, were wanting to hold on to forever? What were we saying? Please don't end. Please don't stop. Please let this continue on. Like when moments like that happen to us, what are we trying to hold on to? Joy. Joy. I get in your business a little bit today. Do you have joy? As you describe the circumstances around your family and your marriage, maybe your workplace, would joy be in that list? Do you have joy today? Like deep in your soul joy that no matter what's happening to you, no matter what somebody says about you, no matter what they do, deep in your soul, it's not coming against your joy. Like, do you have joy after the party? Do you have joy after the wedding? Do you have joy after the birth? Such a joyous moment. Parenting is hard, but do you have joy in that? Do you have joy after the accomplishment? Do you have joy after that moment that you worked so hard for and everything was centered around? See, all of us are trying to grab a hold of it, joy. And we seem to be chasing it. It seems to be hard to hold on to. It seems to come and then it leaves, or we're trying to get back to it. Remember back then, 3 years ago when this was so great and that was so great. Let's get back to that. Like we seem to not be able to grab a hold of joy and hold on to it for very long. And we all have different avenues, different routes that we take to joy. For some of us, we take the avenue of relationships to joy. And so the joy we feel in our soul is directly and corollary to our significant other relationship or lack thereof, or our relationships with someone important to us. See, we take the route of relationship status or relationship satisfaction as if this isn't happening, I don't have joy. Or another route we like to take is through goals, where we're very motivated, we're very, trying to accomplish or make a certain amount of money or get some kind of job title or achieve the 4.0, get into that school, get that promotion. And so we think that's going to be the way to joy, everlasting joy. When I get that, when I have that job, when I have that moment, when I have that team, when I have this way working out in my life. Or sometimes we look at it more as like an experience. I've got to have a Saturday. I've got to do this activity and that activity. If I go this whole week and I don't get this like 2 hours what brings me joy, I'm not going to have joy. And we just look at it as an experience or a hobby or some sort of thing like that. And maybe we fall for this trap. We look at the route of morality through our own efforts, being a good person, trying to make ourselves better. And we think that if we just keep investing in ourselves and we keep trying hard and we keep doing the right thing, that somehow, that right there, that is going to bring us that everlasting joy that we're constantly trying to grab a hold of. Something true about this world that I wish wasn't true is that joy doesn't seem to last when the way you grab a hold of it is through these kinds of routes. I wish it wasn't true, because joy seems to be rare in people. So when we get it, when we get joy, we grab a hold of it. And we try to squeeze onto it. And we hope in our soul, please don't ever stop. Please don't go back to the real world. Please don't like go back to what I'm trying to escape. It's like, what route do you pursue? To preserve joy. And while we're talking about routes, is there a route to everlasting joy? How can we grab a hold of something like that doesn't end? Now, Christmas comes into a world without joy, as we've discussed. Or at least when it did have joy, it didn't last very long. And here's what Luke says in his account, chapter 2, verse 10, about Christmas. I bring you good news. These are angels revealing the good news to the shepherds. I bring you good news, pay attention to this part, that will cause great joy for all people. This doesn't sound like regular news. This doesn't sound like a regular avenue to joy. This sounds better. This sounds great. This doesn't just sound like a regular kind of announcement. It's for all people, and the joy is going to be great. And so as we read this, we understand that there's something out there that causes great joy, everlasting joy, like we don't know, that we wish we had. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. So the thing that is going to cause the great joy that you're trying to grab a hold of is revealed to us right here. It's through Jesus. It's through the coming of the Father to his children. It's the putting on of flesh by a holy God and then entering into a broken world. And we all know what a good father is like. A good father wants to bring what? Wants to bring joy to his children. The kind of joy that lasts. The kind of joy that changes someone and passes something on to them that is so much more valuable than just fulfilling one of the routes that we, go up to God and say, hey, if you just give me this route, then I'll be good. And God's like, no, I want to give you something different than that. I want to give you something that lasts. See, he sees the world, he sees your world without joy, and he acts, and he comes, and he incarnates because he's a father. He's a father. Your experience and my experience of great joy, everlasting joy, will always depend not on whether or not our routes to joy happen or not, but on our response to this news during this season and throughout all seasons of the year. And see, there are basically two routes to pursue once you hear the good news. That great and everlasting joy is possible, even for you. And Matthew chapter 2, 1 through 16, we're going to look at this text, and we're going to compare these two routes. And I want you to look for them as we read this text together, and then we're going to talk about them. So Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 through 16 says this. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi or wise men or kings, whichever term you prefer, from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. In Bethlehem, in Judea, they replied. For this is what the prophet has written. But to you, Bethlehem, and the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. As Herod hears this revelation, he calls the Magi secretly, the wise men secretly, and found out from them, the exact time the star had appeared, and he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for this child. As soon as you find him, report it to me so I too may go and worship him." After they heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen, so it wasn't visible for a little while, now it's back, when it rose, went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child was with his mother, Mary. And you just have to imagine this. 3 kings, 3 wise men from the east. They opened their treasure, they bowed down and they worshiped him. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh, everything on your Christmas list. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their own country. And everybody say this next 2 words with me. By another route. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, he took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious. And he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. So there are 2 routes. There are 2 routes within the 2 responses of the 2 key characters from this text. Did you see them? Well, the first set of characters are the wise men. What do we know about them? Well, first of all, I've already alluded to is some people are mixed up on who they are. The actual word is magi. But let me just tell you a little bit about what they are. These are people, we don't even know if it's 3, it's at least 2. They're people from the east, and likely Persia, okay? And they're experts in astronomy and astrology. Those 2 fields of study were together. Someone like this would have been incredibly gifted, incredibly well-educated, and likely wealthy to be able to sustain that kind of trek. They're going to need some resources. And you have to understand that wise men, or magi, were very commonplace, they still are today in a different way, for kings. See, wise men were the people that kings would seek for the answers to advise outcomes they were confused about that would lead to a route for great joy. Wise decisions, you know. That's what these people represented. And so that's who the wise men are. Here's the other character that we see most vividly in this text is Herod. Now, what do we know about Herod? Well, we know that Herod was a very skilled politician. He was really good at building and fostering partnerships, especially with Rome as they were forming their empire. And he worked his way to being named the king of Judah in that time and ruled over the whole region. He actually is known as Herod the Great, which tells us a few things about him. And the reason why he's given that name is because he seemingly was a good leader in the sense that he built a lot of things. He's the one that rebuilt the temple where people worshiped God. He had many other building projects that he was really good at. He was also really good at amassing wives, which was, one of the skills you needed, I guess, to be a leader back in those days. He had lots and lots of children and alliances. He built alliances. And what we also know about Herod is he's actually from the ancient kingdom of Edom, which is to the east of Jerusalem. And what's fascinating, if you just really dig in, is Herod considered himself at least a partially practicing person of Judaism. How do we know this? Because he had ritual, pools where you could wash in and cleanse in all throughout his palace. And so he did see himself as somebody who followed, at least partly, the ways of Judaism. And so here's Herod, and he is one of the people that we come into contact with. And here are the wise men. They both heard the same news, But did you notice their responses? Very different. And those routes they took from those responses produced very different results. Look at them. The wise men, did you notice the route they took? It led them to this word, overjoyed. Not just regular joy. The joy at the end of a journey, you know? They were overjoyed. Herod's route took him to a place of disturbed and furious. Disturbed and furious. See, all of us, when you hear the news of Christmas, of God coming down, of God stepping in, you can choose one of two routes. Which route sounds like your route? Hint, you look at the way you're feeling right now. Which one do you feel? Herod's route, let's look at it. This is the first choice. His route was essentially preserve my kingdom when he heard the news of a new king. The word that's used is disturbed, which means like agitated or very uncomfortable. So as soon as he heard the news, it troubled him. It caused turmoil. This is like the exact opposite of joy. He's frustrated. He's agitated. This is the same word that's used for how Jesus felt before John writes that Jesus wept. He was disturbed. What was Jesus disturbed at? Jesus was disturbed that somebody was experiencing pain and loss because Mary had lost her brother. And so he was so agitated and so uncomfortable that she was going through trauma. Herod, on the other side of that, is agitated at the prospect of losing something himself. He's disturbed because he's going to experience some loss if this news about a new king is true, because Jesus was a threat to his kingship. Jesus was a threat to his grab onto power and life and all the things that bring him joy. As Herod aged, he became more and more paranoid of losing his power. He began to become in a place of fearing that all the things he had amassed and all the things that he had done were going to slip through his fingertips, that it wasn't going to last. I mean, one historian says that he kept a secret police, maybe up to 2,000 people, to go and smash any opposition against his kingship. Like he was armed and ready to go. In fact, he actually orchestrated the removal of his family, like a wife and a child, because he thought they might try to overtake him. He murdered some of his own kids out of fear. When he was dying, he gave orders for leaders in a town called Jericho to also be killed so that there would definitely be people mourning and weeping when he would eventually die. Herod was trying to keep a hold on everything and eliminate anything that was a threat to that. See, the news of Jesus came months before his death. And the moment that he realizes the wise men don't come back to him and affirm his kingship and his kingdom, his response is furious. This is the only time this word is used in the Bible. It's a kind of over anger. It's kind of like an uncontrolled, desperate rage because he sees maybe he's not king. Maybe he can't hold on to this forever. And then what does he do? In that rage, he orders the slaughter of innocent young boys. See, Herod didn't want to worship the baby king. What did he want to do? He wanted to preserve self-worship. The things that brought him joy and power. This baby was going to threaten all of that. And all of us, we've chosen one time or another, or at least struggled with this route. How do you know if you struggle with the route of Herod? Who's at the center of your life? Are you at the center? What are you trying to grab a hold of? You know? What are you reaching for? And do you have the posture, I've got to guard that thing that's going to bring me joy? Are you guarding it? And then when someone messes it up, do you get a little mad? Might be a cue that you're on that route. So it's not that strange that we choose this route sometimes, because it's in our nature, in our human nature, to preserve and to place ourselves in the center for survival, but then for prosperity. But we really get protective of the things that bring us joy and power and fulfillment. And the baby Jesus threatens that. And in fact, I can't think of a bigger threat to your kingdom, your life, than the news of a new king who's going to dethrone you and dethrone me. And then we have to decide, is preserving my kingdom the best way to everlasting joy? Or is it route number 2, the route that the wise men chose? Because route number 1 leads to disturbed and furious. But route number 2 leads to overjoyed. And here's what we're going to call this route. It's seek the new king. Seek the new king. You see, the Magi, the wise men, they saw something great. Likely what they saw in the sky was Jupiter, which represented a royal, was a royal planet. And they saw Saturn, which sometimes was connected to Judah. And it was very visible in conjunction several times in 7 BC or so. And so likely they saw these signs, they knew what these things represented, and they looked out and they saw something big is happening, and here's what they hoped. I hope it's different than anything we've ever seen from any king that's ever lived, even us. And so what do? On the promise of something different, something that may bring something we've never grabbed a hold of, everlasting joy, they recentered their life around it out of a desire to worship, whatever that was, unlimited information. And they just had to get to this king. That was their whole mindset upon hearing the news. So what did they do? They acted on that limited intel. They didn't know much about it other than what they saw, and they knew it was significant. They rode, days and weeks and months. They researched. They didn't have all the answers. They had a dead end, but then they were pointed to Bethlehem. And they just devoted their life to this. They went on this search. Why? That's the biggest tension in this text. Why do these men from a far country come and search for baby Jesus, who was promised to be king, ruler? My guess is because they hadn't found it yet. Everlasting joy. They've been looking up at the stars their whole lives. They've been looking through different avenues their whole lives for the thing that will fulfill them, and they never found it. And as soon as they hear it might be here, they drop everything and they follow this star to the person who the star points to. Have you found it yet? Unending joy. See, Herod dies trying to grab a hold of every second of power and fulfillment for him. And he died furious and famous for great evil and self-centeredness. Perhaps, please hear me, perhaps the reason why you're unhappy is because you haven't let go of your kingdom. You're still in the center. You're guarding everything that's coming at you because those are the things that are going to bring you joy. But let me just tell you, just kindly, no one on this earth has ever found unending joy. Because it's going to take something outside of this world, coming into the world, to make that kind of reality possible. We all want everlasting joy, but how do you experience it? We've talked about the 2 routes. What's the main difference? Well, you sort of choose. I'm either going to go down or I'm going to grab a hold of. Those are the routes. Letting go of your kingdom or grabbing a hold of it. Now, what the wise men did was they worshiped. And the word worship literally means to bow physically, okay? And in fact, it carries more of the literary picture of to kiss the ground. That's what the word here means. That's what the wise men did, is they kissed the ground out of reverence, and then they gave appropriate gifts, not to mention the time and resources, all for this king. And we have the same choice every day. We can either go down or we can grab a hold of and stand up in the center. Going down requires letting go. Grabbing a hold requires centering all of life around you. You see, watch this. The Almighty, the everlasting Father, the one who has all power and everlasting joy, what does he do? He enters the world unmajestically, becoming a baby into a manger, putting on humanity. What is the everlasting Father doing? He is going down. He is going low. He is stepping into, he's, in a sense, letting go of being the center, which is amazing to think about. See, and this is what love is. It's incarnational. What is that? It enters another's world not to be served, but out of selflessness. See, the route of God, and we need to know this, is down. A life of serving and sacrifice. That is the route of God. That is what he's doing. That is what we are to understand. God is ever holding on to by not holding on to his own preservation, his own interests, his own comforts. The direction, the route of God is down. And Jesus came down to show us the problem that our focus is on self-preservation and self-worship. And he came to powerfully win over sin that keeps us in that place and to bring us joy. What does he say in John 15? He says, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you. The thing that I have that you don't have, I'm trying to give it to you so that your joy may be complete, perfect, fulfilled. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater joy has no one than this. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. If you want my joy, if you want my everlasting joy, then follow my route, Jesus is saying to us. Then follow my route. Become like me. Seek me. You see, the route to everlasting joy, it goes the direction of Jesus. There are no other routes that will take you to everlasting joy other than the route of Jesus. What does that mean? That means we have to let go of this idea that we've got to somehow preserve our kingdoms and grab a hold of the way and the route of Jesus. How do we do this? Well, I'm not exactly sure for you specifically, but I can give you 3 signs that you're on the way. What are these 3 signs? Well, the first one, if you want to head towards everlasting joy, take a hold of that, you have to voluntarily become vulnerable. See, when you stop letting everything circle you, that feels very vulnerable. That takes a lot of trust. But when you're controlling everything around you and all the things that are happening to, hover you, what is that? That's self-worship. And like I said earlier, we sometimes get furious at people in our life when they don't fall in line with the things that we think will bring us comfort and joy. When anyone makes it uncomfortable for us, if our response is anger, then that's not the route of Jesus. See, what you hold on to most tightly for joy, hear me, that's what you kiss. That's what you worship. And you have to just choose. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to be king. I'm going to let go. So what do you need to let go of? That you're trusting in to be the way of everlasting joy for you. What are you protecting? That if you don't have this or everybody doesn't, circle this, See, it feels vulnerable to not be in the center. But Jesus, the Son of God, voluntarily became vulnerable to show you the second sign. Mark chapter 10, even the Son of Man did not come, this is so important, to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. The way of Herod is preserving and self-serving. I'm the center. The Magi, they went on a journey. They recentered their lives in the pursuit of worshiping this new king. And Jesus, the most clear example, he comes into the world not even to be the center, but to serve, to make you the focus, to make our needs the priority. And you'll never know everlasting joy if you don't mirror that, if you as well in your life seek to serve. That's the sign. Do you seek to serve? Is that your center? I'm here to serve people. I'm here to serve my family. I'm here to serve my spouse. I'm here to serve my workplace. I'm here to serve my kids. It might be the reason why you're frustrated and unhappy is because you're in the wrong position. The Magi chose this route of Jesus. They followed it, giving and serving. That's what they did for multiple years, chasing Jesus. And they had joy. And I promise you, if you choose that route, you'll find it. You will find joy, but it only comes by following the route of Jesus. And hey, if you're a Christian, you've chosen you said, I want to follow the route of Jesus. I realize that maybe you're not here today, and that's okay. You're sorting it out. Some of what I'm about to say isn't necessarily for you, but the moment you do sign up and say, I want to follow Jesus, it's for you. So I'm just kind of giving you a preview. I want to be straight with you. If you're a Christian and you don't serve, I'm not sure he's your king. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're a Christian, you should be serving in two ways. You should be spontaneously serving the people in your life as you see those needs, not self-focusing, but looking, how can I help, how can I help, how can I help, how can I serve as they come? That's just who you should be. But then also strategically. The occasion of Christmas was not an accident. It was a strategic moment where Jesus said, I'm going to enter into their world. And so if you're a Christian and you don't have a strategic commitment to serve within the body of Jesus, I'm wondering who's king. Right now, the thing we're sitting in, it's called a service. You're in a service. What does that mean? That means you're being served. It's okay to be served. You need it. You need help with your relationships. You need help with your pursuit of God. But it will never provide you everlasting joy. How do I know this? Because the way of the Father is down. He doesn't come to seek and serve himself. He comes to serve others. And if you're looking for everlasting joy, you will never find it only being served. You will only find it when you become like the Father and serve others. Now, right now, as we're meeting and having a wonderful time, we have a fairly large children's ministry, hundreds of kids, and a student ministry, dozens of students. And let me just say this, okay? Some of you should consider stepping out of the service into their world. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. The reason why you need to do that isn't because you're gifted. Some of you aren't. Or you say that. Some of you, I know your parents, you work with kids all day, maybe you're a teacher and you just want a moment away from kids on a Sunday morning. I get that. But honestly, it's not about gifted, it's not about what you're tired from, it's about what are you called to do. Listen to this text. Psalm chapter 71, verse 18. Even when I am old and gray, do not forsake me, my God, until I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. Let me just be clear. In our children's ministry, we don't need babysitters. We don't need just spot fillers. What do we need? We need Christ worshipers who are so passionate about passing on the faith to the next generation. They don't come to church to be served. Rather, they're so passionate about stepping into another's world, getting uncomfortable, getting committed so that other generations can hear about the great joy for all people. That's what we're here for. Who may not know the everlasting Father because I didn't enter incarnationally? So if you want to serve, I'm going to put a little link up here for you. You can go there. You can scan that. I would love you to join our team. But only if you want to be a Christ worshiper. Only if you want to serve and make a difference. Not just, we don't need spot fillers. We need people who want to take the news of Jesus to the next generation. It will bring you joy. Research tells us this. Besides the example of Jesus, the same parts of your brain when you serve other people are stimulated by food or sex. It's the same parts of your brain are stimulated when you're serving. What route are you going to take that's actually going to fulfill you and bring you everlasting joy? The final thing to know you're on the way is what I'm calling adore and adorn. Adore and adorn. Now, you know the song, "Oh, come, let us adore him," but I don't like that title today. I want to change it to, what if it was, "Oh, come, let us adorn him"? Do you know what adorn means? Adorn means to make something more beautiful and attractive, like to decorate, you know? True adoration leads to duplication. I want to copy that. I want to be like that. Out of my adoration, I want to become incarnational myself, just like Jesus. That's true adoration. I heard recently a story about a person who has sleep apnea, and he was telling this story. I thought it was really good, and he was talking about kind of the oddities of having sleep apnea and how you have the CPAP machine, and every night before you go to bed, you have to put the mask on that looks like from a 1970s sci-fi thing, and so he's putting it on, and at first it's uncomfortable. They've made him a lot better over the years, but it's just uncomfortable. You get used to it or whatever. He talks about one night how he did the whole thing, put the mask on, put it all on, and then he went to bed and went to sleep and woke up at 6 a.m. the next morning to realize, I forgot to turn on the machine. And so he dealt with this mask and the uncomfort of it maybe, and without the benefits of the machine. What would be worse than a world without Christmas? It would be a world that celebrates Christmas, adores Christmas, but doesn't really put Jesus on. Chooses a different route. For a few weeks, we just throw all this, joy, love, peace, church. We put all this on, we hang up a tree, decorate, but we actually don't adorn our souls. We don't crown him as king. See, Jesus puts on humanity to show us the pathway to everlasting joy. Will you put him on? Will you let the Father mold you into the person on whose path, if you submit yourself to him, he'll take you to everlasting joy? Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let earth receive her King. Will you receive him as your King? Will you put on Christ? Will you let go of your kingdom? Will you become vulnerable? Will you live incarnationally? Will you enter into someone else's world to serve them? Looking for joy in your life? I'll tell you where to find it. You have to kiss the ground. You have to kiss the ground. Because Jesus, like Jesus, who came down, he was betrayed with a kiss, and he let go of the comfort of being a king, and he grabbed a hold of a cross so that you and I could experience forgiveness from our sins and a new pathway into everlasting joy. Imagine if this Christmas you put them on. You flip the machine switch. What if you signed up to serve in 2024 because you're just hearing, okay, I've got to put them on. I can't just come to church. I got to serve. Maybe you will no longer see yourself as the center of your workplace, where everything should roll around you, you know? Maybe what you need is in your marriage, you just need to put Christ on and choose to be more vulnerable and serving as you meet her needs. But what I can tell you is no longer, if you put Christ on, no longer will you have to go to things that don't last to bring you everlasting joy. It comes through the way of Jesus, going down, stepping into. We can take a hold of it, and the way we do so is by letting go. By saying, you're King, please come on to me, change me, make me like you. Would you pray with me? God, I just want to come to you this morning and really, God, just humble myself before you along with everybody in this room with me. And God, we want to let go of our kingdoms. We want to go the direction of Jesus. Thank you for stepping into our world, for grabbing a hold of a cross, for showing us the way out of this world, but showing us what it looks like to be transformed on our way out of this world by becoming like you. There's no other way to joy, and I thank you for showing it to us so clearly. Help us to do that. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Hey, would you stand? Let's sing together.